The RTX 4060 might be one of the most misunderstood graphics cards of the last few years. It is not slow, it is not power hungry, and for 1080p gaming, it can still produce genuinely good experiences. But in 2026, none of that automatically makes it a good purchase. The entire verdict comes down to one question: how much cheaper is it than the newer options available to you? Today, we are separating the hardware from the hype and giving the RTX 4060 a price at which it still makes sense. The desktop RTX 4060 launched in June 2023 at $299. It uses NVIDIA's Ada Lovelace architecture with 3072 CUDA cores, a boost clock around 2.46 gigahertz, and 8 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory. It was designed primarily for 1080p gaming. That point matters because a lot of criticism comes from asking the card to behave like a high-end 1440p or 4K product. At 1080p, the 4060's raw performance is still useful. Competitive games are easy to work, and most demanding games remain playable, and settings are chosen intelligently. It also has several practical advantages that do not show up in a simple average FPS chart. It is extremely efficient. NVIDIA rates average gaming power around 110 watts, while independent tests generally puts the full gaming consumption close to 115 watts. Most models are compact, cool, and easy to power with normal PCIe connectors. That makes the 4060 unusually friendly for inexpensive pre-builts, small cases, and upgrades, where replacing the power supply would destroy the budget. It also includes AV1 encoding, which is useful for streaming and video creation, plus the NVIDIA software ecosystem, Reflex, Broadcast, CUDA, and DLSS features in supported games. So far, this sounds pretty good. The problem is what NVIDIA has cut to get there. The older RTX 3060 commonly shipped with 12 gigabytes of memory, compared to the newer 4060, which dropped to 8, paired with a more narrow 128-bit memory bus. That looks backwards because, in one important way, it is. 8 gigabytes does not make every game stutter. And it does not suddenly make the card useless. At 1080p, medium or high texture settings can still provide an excellent image. The limitation appears when a game's texture pack, ray tracing, or poorly managed assets exceeded the available memory. Then you may see sharp drops in the 1% lows, texture swapping, hitching, or settings that cannot be used comfortably. This is why average FPS alone can hide the problem. A benchmark might report a respectable average, while the actual experience contains distracting pauses. The sensible response is not panic. It is expectation management. If you want maximum textures in every new release, heavy ray tracing, or long-term 1440p card, the RTX 4060 is the wrong target. If you play at 1080p and are willing to reduce the settings and consume large amounts of VRAM, 8 gigabytes can still work. The concern is not only what runs today, it is how much compromise you are buying for tomorrow. DLSS is one of the strongest reasons an NVIDIA card is still plausible in today's market, but the terminology can make performance claims look better than they feel. DLSS super resolution renders the game internally at a lower resolution, then reconstructs a higher resolution image. At 1080p, quality mode is usually the place to begin, because aggressive modes have fewer source pixels to work with. Frame generation is different. It creates additional frames between normally rendered frames. That can make motion look much smoother, especially when the base frame rate is already healthy. But generated frames do not remove the input latency of the underlying render. A displayed 100 FPS produced with frame generation does not respond exactly like a native 100 FPS, but use it as a smoothness feature, not a magic replacement for the real performance. For slower single-player games, it can be valuable. For competitive shooters, prioritize a high native frame rate and low latency. Also remember that these benefits exist only in supported games. Never compare a card using frame generation against another card running natively and pretend the numbers mean the same thing. The RTX 4060 still fits three kinds of buyer. First, we have the low power upgrader. If your case is small, your power supply is modest, and you want to drop in an upgrade without rebuilding the computer, the 4060's efficiency has real monetary value. The second type of buyer is the 1080p player upgrading from a much older hardware, like a GTX 1060 or the RTX 2060. You gain modern encoding, current driver support, better ray tracing, and access to frame generation in supported titles. The third type of buyer is the budget creator or streamer who specifically benefits from NVIDIA's AV1 encoder, CUDA compatibility, or broadcasting tools. But there are also buyers who should immediately look elsewhere. Do not buy it as a premium 1440p card. Do not buy it for maximum texture settings in every future release. Do not replace an already decent card for a tiny performance increase. And do not pay nearly the same price as a newer GPU because the box says GeForce. You would not be surprised how many people do that. Graphics card recommendations expire quickly. So instead of pretending one permanent dollar figure works everywhere, use a percentage. Find the best, sensible, newer card available in your market. Compare models you can actually buy today with similar warranty coverages and from retailers that you trust. Now compare its price with the RTX 4060. If the 4060 is at least 25% cheaper, it deserves consideration. At that discount, accepting 8 gigabytes and older hardware can be a rational budget decision. If it's only 15 to 24% cheaper, the decision is borderline. The 4060 may still win for a restricted power supply, a tiny case, or a workflow that strongly favors NVIDIA. If it is less than 15% cheaper, or somehow costs more, skip it. Pay for the newer card. The longer useful life and the stronger resale story. For used RTX 4060, demand a bigger discount. A used card may have no useful warranty, and you cannot assume how it was treated. This rule prevents a common budget PC mistake: buying a cheaper product when it is not cheap enough. The RTX 4060 can make more sense inside a discounted complete PC than as a standalone card. Sellers often price a system by the GPU while overlooking the total package. If the machine includes a capable 6-core or 8-core processor, 16 gigabytes or more of dual-channel memory, a decent SSD, and a trustworthy power supply, the full system price may be attractive. But inspect the details. Confirm the exact processor, not just Core i7, not releasing the generation, which could be up to 15 years old. Check the memory. If it uses 2 sticks when possible, that's good. Identify the power supply brand and model. Test temperatures, storage health, every display output, Wi-Fi, USB ports, and game stability. Never let an RTX badge distract you from a weak or proprietary system around it. The RTX 4060 was criticized because buyers expected a stronger generational upgrade and more than 8 gigabytes of memory. Those criticisms are fair, but the card itself remains efficient, compact, feature-rich, and capable at 1080p. Very capable. Its biggest weakness in 2026 is not that it suddenly stopped running games. It is the newer products that now exist, and old inventory does not always receive an honest old product price. So here's the verdict. Buy it when it is at least 25% cheaper than the best reasonable newer alternative. When you primarily play at 1080p and when power efficiency or NVIDIA specific features matter to you. Skip it when the discount is small, when you want a high-end 1440p setting, or when 8 gigabytes already conflicts with the games and workloads that you care about. The RTX 4060 is not automatically a bad GPU. It is a price-sensitive GPU. Price is the entire point. What does an RTX 4060 cost where you live? And what is the next cheapest newer option? Put both prices in the comments. We may use your market in a future Broke Tech Guys comparison. Subscribe if you want buying advice based on what your hardware actually costs, not just the names on the box. Also, like and comment down below on as many videos as you can, and you will be entered into a 4060 WindForce OC giveaway. Thank you.